For years, guitar makers have been trying to mix electric guitar stylings with acoustic guitar sound, and, well, they all suck, mostly. They either don't sound good enough to interest the core acoustic players, or they're too acousticy for the electric guys. But when Ibanez announced this more affordable version of the Tim Hortons signature, my interests were piqued. Is this an actual option for electric players who want to play something a little bit more chill, or is it just a cynical cash grab off the back of Tim's well-deserved popularity? Welcome back, my dudes, it's great to have you here. I'm Jack, and today we're going to be taking a look at the all-new Ibanez FRH10N-NTF. This is the more affordable and less edgy version of the Tim Henson signature TOD 10N, and while it's got traditional looks, it still reminds me that I can't play like Tim and probably never will. But I'm not going to let that stop me finding out whether this guitar is actually good. First things first, let's talk about appearance and build quality. This guitar comes in two finishes, the natural flat that I went for and a brown sunburst flat. Both are quite traditional looking finishes anyway, but I like the look of a Sitka spruce top coupled with the Ibanez modern take on a T-style. Also, it's the same look as my dad's guitar, so it's like a nice generational thing for me and a bit of a nod to him. So we know the top is Sitka spruce, but there's actually like 4 different woods that go into this guitar's construction. So the back and sides are sapelli, the C-profile set neck is made from Nyato, and the bridge and fretboard are actually made from walnut. Now, I really don't know if walnut is a common choice for those parts because of my unsophisticated, non-classical playing brain knows absolutely nothing about acoustic guitar construction, but I like it. The woods all look great and they're all tied together with a fancy multiply binding. Other appointments include a bone nut, gold hardware, and the Ibanez T-bar undersaddle pickup that's got no EQ controls but does have a mute switch. It's a classy looking guitar, no doubt, and the quality of the construction is just as good. I was actually a little bit worried because recently Ibanez have been a victim to their own success. Certain models have been so in demand that it seems like they've been slapping them together, lobbing them out the door, and then quality control's taken a bit of a hit. It's a problem a few of you guys have told me about personally, and I've seen a lot of it reported online, but luckily this one seems to have been done right for the most part. The construction, as far as I can tell, is really tidy, and the only problem I've been able to find is a slight discoloration on the lower horn. Another cool thing about the design of this guitar is it doesn't have a massive hole on the front. They've actually put the sound hole right under your face hole, and that's a really interesting feature, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute. So I didn't really know what to expect in terms of playability from this guitar. Would it play like an electric? Would it play like a classical? What would it feel like? Well, I guess it's kind of both at the same time, but it's definitely more classical than it is electric. It's definitely got the form factor of an electric guitar, which I'm a big fan of, and it makes it feel familiar straight away. But when you put your hand on the neck and start to play, it becomes clear that this is definitely intended to provide more of a classical experience. The neck is just under 2 inches at the nut, and the fretboard's like a 16-inch radius, which seems to be a fairly standard thing for classical guitars. And the neck profile is just listed as a C, which I guess is technically right, but I don't think it gives you the full picture. It's not got a lot of shoulder at all, and it's surprisingly thin, thinner than I thought it was going to be. It's not an electric guitar neck by any means, but it definitely doesn't feel like any classical I've played either. I'd say it's kind of the best of both worlds because it's really comfortable to play on. It actually really reminds me of the neck on the Schecter Roman Elite 7. It's not quite as wide, but the profile's really similar, and that's a good thing. In terms of actual playing experience, I've always found nylon strum guitars to be quite difficult to play. If you're not used to the high action and the alien feeling of nylon strings under your fingers, it can be really weird. But I'm actually enjoying this a lot. I'm hardly playing it like a classical guitar because, well, I can't, but playing through licks and messing around with like neo soul and lo-fi chords, that type of thing is just super fun. The strangest thing about nylon strings is how they like roll about under your fingers. You just can't really execute decent up and down vibrato on these strings, so you've got to use violin style vibrato, and even that's been really cool. It kind of sets the intention for how you're going to play, and it makes the whole experience something different. A benefit of the nylon strings though is that they're so easy to fret and they're really comfy on your fingertips. I really like the way this guitar plays, dude. It's just electric enough to make it really convenient, but it gives a proper classical guitar experience. There's something about playing nylon strings that I really like, and this to me is like the exact way that I want to do it. Going back to what I said earlier, there's no hole. Well, I guess aside from this little one for the truss rod. The sound hole on this Ibanez is right here, so you'd think that this guitar would be much quieter for everyone who's not playing it, right? Well, no, not really. it seems like the spruce top still projects quite a lot. In fact, I was sat downstairs playing a few weeks ago and my partner was upstairs putting the baby to bed. When she came down, she basically told me to play quieter because she could hear every note upstairs. And I wasn't even really playing all that loud, so this thing still kicks out a fair bit of sound. And the sound hole, channeling what you're playing directly at your head, is a really great touch. In practicality, it doesn't really make all that much of a difference because you and everybody around you can hear what you're playing anyway, but it does make a bit of a difference in how you hear it, if that makes any sense at all. You as the player just get a bit more of the feedback directly than everybody else does, and I really like that. It's sort of like having your own monitor pointing at your head, but it doesn't make a huge difference really, other than making the guitar look super clean. What happens when you plug it in though? Having the option to amp this guitar or DI it into your audio workstation is so good, dude. When speaking of the tone, the Ibanez T-bar pickup does an admirable job of relaying your selected frequencies into your choice of amplification or recording equipment. As I was saying, the pickup sounds decent. I don't know how this compares to the TOD10N with its Fishman pickup, but it does fine, although it does sound a little bit too much like a DI and loses the resonance that you get in the room. It's quite spanky sounding and doesn't completely do the guitar's true sound justice, but that's like just my opinion, man. However, where it really comes into its own is the flexibility it gives you to get creative with your tones. You can really build on the sound of this guitar with some cool amps and effects. I'm going to show you some examples. First, just the ambient sound from my mic. Then I'm going to show you the DI, and then we're going to get a little bit saucy with some Neural DSP plugins. Having a guitar that sounds like this but has some of the DNA of an electric is just such a cool thing to me, man. It opens up so many creative avenues for me that I didn't have access to before, and like, that's the reason that you should be buying a new guitar, innit? Either to fix a problem that you've got, or to give you more pathways to playing the stuff that you want to play. Or maybe you just want to be Tim Henson without paying as much, or being anywhere near as good as he is in my case. Overall, I think that Ibanez have really managed to crack the code on blending acoustic sounds with electric form factor, and I really like it. I do know there's options from other companies that do the same thing, but I've just never been able to try one. If you do have a recommendation, or you just want to leave your thoughts about this guitar, hit me up in the comment section. You guys have always got really good points to make, and I love chatting to you about them. Also, it'd mean the world to me if you could do all the YouTube stuff and click all the buttons down there so that YouTube knows you enjoyed yourself. It genuinely does make a massive difference, and I really appreciate you all for it. Also, YouTube thinks you'll like this video next, so why not see if they're right? In the meantime, thank you so much for spending some time with me. You're awesome. Take care, mate. Stay safe. I'll see you later.